This right here is my ultimate Shake Shack order made at home. It's a double smoke shack, cheese fries, and a vanilla shake. I've gotten a stomach ache off of this meal way too many times to count, and I've made it all at home. So I'll show you how to make the sauce, the burger, the custard for the shake, the cheese sauce for the fries, and I can't wait to show you how to make it. So let's dive in. The key steps for this video will be to make the custard base and get that freezing. Just needs the most time, so we want to get that out of the way earlier. Then we're gonna make the shack sauce, the cheese sauce, and then we can put it all together in one glorious burger. Really straightforward, really simple. Everything is gonna be so easy to do. You can make incredibly delicious frozen desserts at home without an ice cream machine, and the technique is so straightforward. This is probably my favorite technique for ice cream or custard. There's no machine required. It works for everyone. All you need is a metal bowl and a spoon or a spatula. Into a small sauce pot, mix together a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, and 4 egg yolks. The egg yolks are gonna give this a lot of richness. There's a lot of fat when it comes to custard. That's one of the defining features of a custard versus an ice cream. I also like to add a pinch of salt here and just mix that together so the egg yolks and sugar are completely combined. This is gonna help keep the egg yolks from scrambling while we cook it. From there, add a cup of heavy cream and a 1/2 cup of whole milk. Get that onto the stove and cook it over medium heat until you start to see it steam, and then it's gonna start to bubble. And as it bubbles, that's when the thickening is gonna happen. Throughout this whole time, you just need to keep mixing. If you've got a whisk, that's perfect. You can start to really easily feel when the custard is thickening. Any sort of custard is thickened. Think of this like a pudding, just with egg yolks instead of cornstarch as the thickener. You'll know it's ready when the spoon or whisk or spatula, whatever you're using to mix it, starts leaving streaks in the custard itself. And then we're just gonna let it cool slightly and run it through a mesh sieve. You're gonna wanna sieve out any of those little bits of eggs that maybe turned into scrambled eggs. Usually there's not a ton, but you can see there's some left here. With the custard slightly cooled, I like to add the vanilla now. You get way more fragrant vanilla flavor if you wait to add it until after the custard's been cooked. This first bowl it's being strained into was in the freezer, same thing with the spoon that I'm gonna use. And then I'm gonna grab a second bowl and put some cold water and ice in it. Just gonna set the bowl with the custard onto the ice bowl, and I'll give it a good mix so the custard is cool before it goes into the freezer. I just don't want like steaming hot custard going into my freezer. From there, the bowl and spoon and custard can go straight into the freezer for about 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, we're gonna take this out of the freezer and mix it by hand until there are no visible chunks of frozen custard or crystals. Everything off the sides has been scraped up and mixed back into the mix. Think of this as your churning stage. We wanna make sure there aren't giant crystals of frozen custard because you're gonna really notice that on your palate when you're eating it. The smoother we can get this by mixing, the better it's gonna be at the end of the day. The first 30 minutes, you'll notice it's just cold. There's not really that much to mix in. The second 30 minutes is when it starts to get a little bit more solid, and that's when you have to do a little bit more work. By the third mixing, you're really starting to see this turn into a frozen dessert. At about 2 hours, this is usually set to a point where I like to mix it really, really well. If you were like me as a kid, you ate ice cream and would stir it with a spoon until it was like nice and smooth. This is sort of that soft servy type stage. 2 hours is usually where it's good to take it out of the bowl, add it to a different container, and then set it in the freezer to turn into the actual frozen custard. At this soft custard stage, you could totally eat it. I just find it melts really, really quickly. It just hasn't had enough time for everything to get as cold as it needs to be, even if it is semi-set. It's incredible, but it melts fast. So if we're gonna eat this now, totally eat it now. If you're gonna turn it into a milkshake, set it in the fridge and let it get a little bit more frozen. The sauce for the burger, the iconic Shack sauce, is as easy as it gets when it comes to burger sauces. I find burger sauces fall into 2 camps. There's like the really chunky, tangy burger sauces, and then smooth and sweet. Shack sauce is definitely on the smooth and sweet side of things. Into a container, add 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. Mayo is usually sort of the base for all of these burger sauces. Add a tablespoon of ketchup, 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard, and then like 1/2 of a pickle spear, just thinly sliced, garlic powder, paprika, and quite a bit of sugar, like a 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar in here. Cayenne is gonna help with a little bit of heat, but mostly we want a little bit of that sweetness. Blend this with a stick blender until totally smooth. You shouldn't have any chunks of pickle in this. Another iconic feature of Shack sauce is it's like totally, completely smooth. I think it tends to taste more like what you'd get at the restaurant when it's sat in the fridge for a few hours. You know, they're making big batches. Theirs are getting a chance to sit and mingle, so we wanna do the same. Custard's done, Shack sauce is done. Now it's the cheese sauce, which is like probably my favorite thing that we're making today. A few years ago, Shake Shack put out the actual recipe they use for their Shack cheese sauce, and we're just gonna go off that with a few adjustments. I like to add a little bit of canola oil in a saucepan over medium heat, and then add in sliced onions, jalapeños, and peppercorn. We're just gonna cook this until the onions are soft and not caramelized. From there, add in white wine and white vinegar to cook down until the liquids are completely gone. This gives it like a nice pungent acidity, and it makes it a lot more than just generic melted cheese. Once the liquid's gone, turn off the heat and add in the heavy cream. So here I like to do heavy cream plus like a few tablespoons of whole milk. I find that when you make the recipe to a T exactly how Shake Shack does, it comes out really, really, really thick. Let the heavy cream sort of sit with those seasonings, and then after about 30 minutes, you're gonna strain the heavy cream. While the flavor was infusing into the cream, I went ahead and fried up some strips of bacon because a Smoke Shack always has bacon on it. It's easy, just fry up some bacon until it's crispy. I had frozen bacon, so it had to start off a little bit weird, but no biggie. Use the water trick if you wanna get it unfrozen quickly, and then you can just fry it from there. Take it out when it's nice and crisp. No one wants soggy, floppy bacon on their burgers. Strain the solids out of the cream so it's just smooth, and then return it to the pan over medium heat. Once it's up to temperature, you should start to see some bubbling. Add in the cheeses. Start with American cheese. I'm making a half batch here because it makes a ton of cheese sauce. So this is gonna be 1 cup of American cheese. How I like to get my cheese measured is I grate my cheddar cheese first and then put that in a cup measurement, and then I weigh how much cheese that was. And then I just get an equal amount by weight in American cheese. It's really hard to cup measure American cheese a lot of times because it either comes in a big block form or slices. How do you get a cup of a sliced cheese? I don't know. And people online don't really seem to know either, so this is how I like to do it. I just want equal parts cheddar to American. American for smoothness and emulsifying. If you've ever had a gritty cheese sauce, it's because it wasn't fully emulsified. And then cheddar for like that nice sharp flavor. If you melt the American cheese first, the sauce is much less likely to break and become gritty, but just something to consider. Once it's nice and smooth and silky, give it a taste for salt, and then you can just cover this and let it sit on the stove with the lid on. Once you need it again, add a little bit of milk to thin it out if it's gotten a little bit gloopy, and then just get it hot so it's nice and melty again. Super easy to hold while we make the rest of the stuff. If you're making shakes for 2 people, I find the pint of custard that we just made is about exactly right for it. So add the whole thing if you're making it for 2 people. If you're making it for 1, you can get away with half. Add a splash of milk. The ratio is pretty personal. If you want like a really thick Shake Shack type of milkshake, you can totally go with way less milk. If you want it more smooth and drinkable, add more milk. I like to be able to drink my milkshakes, so I like to add a little bit more milk to it. Blend it just until smooth, and then pour it into a cold glass and drink it right away. Toppings and stuff you need to have on hand. You need a bun. I need American cheese, 2 slices. I'm making a double. Each patty needs a slice of cheese, and then chopped cherry peppers. That is another key component to a Smoke Shack, is nice chopped cherry peppers, about like 2 tablespoons or so per burger. Shake Shack is notorious for using frozen crinkle cut fries. They're basically exactly what you would get at the grocery store, just deep fried. If you want to just make them really easily and don't want to have to worry about deep frying anything, you can just bake them in the oven. Salt at the end, and then that's gonna be the base for our cheese fries. If you want good, juicy smash burgers, you need to have at least 20% fat in the patty itself. This is 80-20 ground beef, and I'm gonna measure out about 4-ounce patties, so a 1/4 pound. Gently shape them into balls. You don't need to press or compress them into shape here. I actually bought a griddle recently, and it's one of my favorite purchases. You could totally do this in a cast iron. I just find it's hard to get a good smash on a burger when the pan isn't wide enough, and my cast iron just isn't wide enough. While the griddle is heating up, I like to get my bun toasted. I don't wanna add any butter to this, because that's gonna get really smoky and burny as the pan heats up. So just a dry pan, use the heat up time to cook and get a nice sear on the burger bun. You're gonna want it pretty hot, like, you know, medium high heat. I feel like high is overkill, especially if you live in an apartment where your smoke alarm's gonna go off. So go like medium high and just make sure it's nice and hot. Just salt your burgers and then add them directly to the griddle. Let it sit for like 10-20 seconds and then flip it. And that side that's been slightly cooked is gonna be way, way easier to press. If you press the uncooked side, I feel like the raw meat tends to stick to the whatever you're pressing it with. Smash them aggressively into the pan, and that's how you get that nice seared crusty edge. My flame was sort of like peeking over the edge of my griddle, and I seared off a bunch of my arm hair, which, you know, it happens. Ironically, this is actually not the first time in this week that I've burnt off the hair in this exact same spot. So it was just starting to grow back and it's gone again. I like to season this side with salt and pepper and then just leave them while the crust sets. You should really easily be able to see the crust forming. The top of it's gonna start leaking out some of the juices, and that's usually a good sign to give it a flip. You're looking for a deep, beautiful crust on the edges before you flip them. I find smash burgers are cooked about 80% of the way on that first side. I like to scrape, make sure all of the crust is attached to the burger. You don't want to be leaving that on the pan. Flip it, and then I just turn the heat off and add my cheese. It does not need a lot of time on that second side. This is exactly how Shake Shack builds their smoke shack. We go bun on the bottom, one of the patties with cheese on top, another patty with cheese on top, then we've got bacon. For the top bun, we're gonna spread on our Shack sauce pretty generously, and then we're gonna add our chopped cherry peppers to it. The Shack sauce kind of holds the cherry peppers in place while we seal this bad boy up. This is about exact as I could be to get a smoke shack at home. Cheese fries are really straightforward. Put your salted, crispy French fries in a bowl, and then top with the melted cheese to your heart's desire. So this is the order. You see, by pressing the burger meat into this griddle, we get that nice, crispy, brown smash burger texture that everyone loves so much. Once I flip it, I like to turn the heat off, and I don't want them overcooked because I want to make sure that they're still juicy on the inside. The cheese fries, I've eaten these so many times, and they are spot on. I mean, it's literally the Shake Shack recipe for cheese fries, so it tastes exactly like you think it would. But I gotta dive in. I'm just gonna start. Holy jeez. Oh, it's so exact to what you would expect. The only difference, I would say, is these cherry peppers are a little bit spicier than the ones you get at Shake Shack, which I'm pretty okay with. That very much tracks with the kind of food that I like. All right, cheese fry time. They're so good. I know that there are certain people out there that really like cheese fries from In-N-Out. Just like the most ridiculous thing in the world to me, because those are literally just fries with a slice of American cheese melted on top. The Shake Shack cheese fries are unreal because their cheese sauce is so good and so flavorful. They're probably like the best fast food-ish cheese fries in the game. Besides Taco Bell, but that's like a whole different thing. There's our homemade custard, milkshake. Tastes like melted creme brulee. If you put enough vanilla in it, so good. So happy. Massive shout out to the amazing people supporting me directly on Patreon through patreon.com/CameronMarty. They get some cool benefits from supporting the channel, and I get to keep making videos like this, so it's a huge win on both sides. Consider checking it out and consider becoming a patron. Now, if you like this video, but you want something that's a little more interesting, go ahead and watch my last video on coaching needs at PBL. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.